Welcome back to the deep dive. Imagine for a moment you're floating in one of those sensory deprivation tanks. Total darkness, silence, no touch. It sounds relaxing, maybe.
Maybe for some, but what often happens is, well, people start hallucinating. Wild stuff.
Exactly. Pink elephants, hearing choirs, even tasting things that aren't there. It's bizarre, but it really highlights something fundamental, doesn't it?
It really does. Our sanity, our whole connection to reality, it hinges on this constant stream of information from the world around us. And just as importantly, our ability to send commands back out.
Right. And that whole communication network, that back and forth between your brain and, well, everything else inside and out. That's our topic today, the peripheral nervous system, the PNS.
It's the crucial link. Think of it as the body's internet, connecting the central processing unit, your brain and spinal cord, to every single outpost.
Yeah, good analogy. So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack how the PNS gathers all that sensory data, how it sends out motor commands, manages reflexes, the whole works.
We'll be drawing heavily on sources like Human Anatomy and Physiology, 10th edition, looking at the structures, the functions, and some of those really interesting clinical connections and processes.
Okay, let's get into it. Where does our experience of the world even begin? It starts with sensory receptors, right?
Absolutely. These tiny specialized cells are tuned to detect changes in the environment stimuli, as we call them.
And there's a key difference we need to make right away. Sensation versus perception. They sound similar, but they're not the same thing.
Not at all. Sensation is just the raw awareness. You step on a sharp pebble, the sensation is that localized pressure.
Ouch.
Right. But perception is your brain interpreting that. It's the ouch, the annoyance, the decision to lift your foot. It's the meaning your brain assigns.
That makes sense. So raw data versus interpretation. And these receptors, they're not a monolith. They're specialized, classified by what they detect.
Precisely. We've got mechanoreceptors responding to physical things. Touch, pressure, vibration, stretch, like feeling the keys under your fingers.
Yeah.
Then thermoreceptors for temperature changes. Hot, cold. Pretty straightforward.
And photoreceptors in the eyes for light, obviously.
Yeah.
And chemoreceptors for chemicals that cover smell, taste, even things like your blood oxygen levels.
Yep. But then we have the nociceptors, or pain receptors. And what's fascinating here is they respond to potentially damaging stimuli.
So not just normal heat, but searing heat.
Exactly. Or extreme cold, or excessive pressure, even certain chemicals released by damaged tissues. Our sources mention the vanilloid receptor. It's triggered by heat, but also by capsaicin.
That's stuff in chili peppers. So eating spicy food is literally activating pain pathways, kind of a culinary illusion.
It is. It's hijacking that warning system. And receptors are also classified by location. Exteroceptors are near the surface, picking up external stimuli, touch, temperature on your skin.
Makes sense. External.
Then interoceptors, or visceroceptors, are deep inside, monitoring your internal organs, blood vessels. Usually you're unaware of them unless something's wrong, like feeling bloated or maybe thirsty.
Okay. And the third location type.
Proprioceptors. These are really cool. They're internal too, but specifically in skeletal muscles, tendons, joints, ligaments, they constantly tell your brain about your body's position and movement.
Ah, this is the close your eyes and touch your nose thing.
Exactly. Try it right now, listeners. Close your eyes, wiggle your fingers. You know exactly where they are without looking. That's proprioception. It's constantly working, mapping your body in space.
Incredible. Okay, so stimulus type, location. Any other ways to classify them?
Yeah. By structure, especially for the general senses, you have non-encapsulated or free nerve endings. These are everywhere, particularly in skin and connective tissues. They mostly detect temperature and pain, but also some pressure. Itch is mediated by these too.
Like a mosquito bite triggering histamine release.
Precisely. Then you have encapsulated nerve endings. These have a connective tissue capsule around the nerve ending, and they're mostly mechanoreceptors.
Any examples?
Sure, like lamellar corpuscles, sometimes called Pacinian corpuscles. They look a bit like a tiny onion under the microscope. They're deep in the skin and respond best to deep pressure and vibration, like feeling a phone buzz in your pocket.
Okay, so from the lightest touch to deep vibrations, it's all down to these specialized receptors feeding information into the system.
It's the gateway to our entire sensory world.
So all this information comes flooding in from the receptors. How does the nervous system actually make sense of it all? Turn it from raw data into, perception?
Well, it happens across three main levels of integration. The receptor level, the circuit level, and the perceptual level.
Okay, break those down for us. Receptor level.
That's the first step. The stimulus has to excite the receptor. And crucially, the stimulus energy needs to be converted into an electrical signal, a nerve impulse. That conversion process is called transduction.
And something important happens here called adaptation, right? Where receptors kind of tune out.
Yes, exactly. Many receptors are phasic, meaning they adapt rapidly. Think about the feeling of your clothes on your skin. You notice it when you put them on, but then pretty quickly you don't consciously feel it anymore unless it changes. They signal change well, but others like pain receptors, nociceptors, and proprioceptors are tonic. They adapt very slowly or not at all. You need that constant information for protection or body awareness. You wouldn't want to stop feeling pain if your hand is still on something dangerous.
Makes perfect sense.
Okay.
So after the receptor level.
We move to the circuit level. This is about getting the information delivered to the right parts of the CNS, specifically the cerebral cortex for conscious awareness. It involves pathways, typically a chain of 3 neurons, first, second, and third order neurons carrying the signal upwards.
Like a relay race for information.
Kind of, yeah. Ascending pathways delivering the message.
And the final step.
The perceptual level. This happens in the cerebral cortex. This is where sensation becomes conscious perception interpretation. And a key concept here is the labeled line principle.
Labeled line, what's that?
It means that your brain interprets signals coming from a specific receptor type as a specific sensation, regardless of how that receptor was actually stimulated.
So, like if you press on your closed eye, you might see flashes of light.
Exactly. No light actually entered your eye, but you stimulated the photoreceptors, and your brain knows signals on that line mean light. It's how the brain maps incoming signals to specific experiences.
Wow. That's fundamental to how we perceive reality. Which leads us nicely to one of the most powerful perceptions, pain.
Pain. Unpleasant, obviously, but incredibly important. It's our body's alarm system warning us about actual or potential tissue damage.
What actually triggers pain receptors?
Extremes of pressure, temperature, but also a whole cocktail of chemicals released by injured cells, things like histamine, potassium ions, acids, bradykinin. When tissue is damaged, it essentially sends out chemical distress signals.
And we feel pain differently sometimes, right? Like a sharp prick versus a dull ache.
Yes, that relates to the nerve fibers carrying the signals. Sharp pain is typically carried by faster, myelinated fibers, often felt first. Then comes a slower, burning, or aching pain carried by thinner, non-myelinated fibers. Both pathways release neurotransmitters like glutamate and substance P in the spinal cord.
But the brain isn't just a passive receiver of pain signals, is it? It can actually modulate pain.
It absolutely can. We have a descending pain control system. Certain brain areas can release our body's own natural opioids, endorphins, and enkephalins.
Like the runner's high?
That's thought to be related, yes. These endogenous opioids can act in the spinal cord to block or dampen the transmission of pain signals coming up from the body. It's why in emergencies or high-stress situations, people might not feel injuries immediately.
The body's own pain relief. Incredible. Now clarify something. Pain threshold versus pain tolerance. People mix these up.
Good point. Pain threshold is the point at which we start to perceive a stimulus as painful. And research suggests this is remarkably similar across most people. But pain tolerance is the maximum level of pain a person is willing to endure. And this varies hugely between individuals, influenced by genetics, past experiences, culture, mood, all sorts of factors.
So everyone feels pain start at roughly the same point, but how much they can take differs a lot.
Exactly. And clinically, long-term pain can be a real problem because it can change the system.
Not so.
Intense or prolonged pain can lead to hyperalgesia, which is basically pain amplification. The system becomes hypersensitive. This can contribute to chronic pain conditions. It highlights why treating pain early and effectively is so important.
And what about phantom limb pain? That seems related.
It is a fascinating and tragic example. Pain felt in a limb that's been amputated. It's thought to involve the brain essentially rewiring or misinterpreting signals, possibly due to the massive injury signals during amputation. Studies show using epidural anesthesia during the surgery can reduce the likelihood of developing it.
Blocking those initial signals seems key. One last thing on pain. Referred pain, like heart attack pain in the arm.
Yes, that's a classic example. Pain originating in an internal organ, viscera, is felt on the body surface somewhere else. It happens because sensory fibers from the organ enter the spinal cord at the same level as fibers from that area of skin.
So the brain gets confused.
Essentially, yeah. The brain is more used to interpreting signals from the skin, so it mistakenly attributes the organ's pain signal to the corresponding skin area. The heart and the left arm region share pathways around spinal segments T1 to T5, hence the referred pain pattern. It's a quirk of our neural wiring.
Fascinating and clinically very important.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked about sensing and processing. Let's get physical. The nerves themselves. What exactly is a nerve?
Fundamentally, a nerve is a bundle of axons, the long projections of neurons in the peripheral nervous system. Think of it like a cable containing many individual wires.
Okay, so it's not just one single fiber.
No, not usually.
Oh.
Each individual axon, often with its myelin sheath, is wrapped in a delicate connective tissue layer called the endoneurium.
Endo meaning within?
Right. Then groups of these axons are bundled together into fascicles, and each fascicle is wrapped by the perineurium.
Peri meaning around.
And finally, all the fascicles are bundled together and enclosed by a tough outer sheath, the epineurium, which forms the whole nerve.
Epi meaning upon or over. So layers of protection and organization, just like a complex cable.
Exactly. And most nerves are mixed nerves, meaning they carry both sensory afferent fibers traveling towards the CNS and motor efferent fibers traveling away from the CNS. Some cranial nerves are purely sensory or purely motor, but spinal nerves are all mixed.
And what about ganglia? We hear that term too.
Ganglia are collections of neuron cell bodies found outside the CNS, usually associated with peripheral nerves. For example, the dorsal root ganglia contain the cell bodies of sensory neurons. In the CNS, a cluster of neuron cell bodies is called a nucleus, but in the PNS, it's a ganglion.
Got it. Now, a really critical aspect is nerve damage and repair. Can nerves heal?
It's complicated. Mature neurons themselves generally don't divide, so if the neuron cell body is destroyed, that neuron is gone for good.
Okay.
However, axons can regenerate, but it depends heavily on where the damage occurs.
Ah, the difference between the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system. Why is CNS damage, like a spinal cord injury, usually permanent?
Several reasons. In the CNS, the oligodendrocytes, which myelinate axons, actively inhibit axon regrowth. Plus, astrocytes, another type of glial cell, form scar tissue at the injury site, which acts as a physical barrier. The whole environment in the CNS is basically non-permissive for regeneration.
Which is why those injuries are so devastating. But the PNS is different.
Yes, remarkably so. If a peripheral axon is damaged, but the cell body is intact, regeneration is possible. The Schwann cells, which myelinate PNS axons, play a crucial role.
Ow.
They clean up the debris from the damaged axon downstream from the injury. Then, crucially, they form a regeneration tube, a sort of tunnel that guides the sprouting end of the damaged axon back towards its original target.
So the Schwann cells actively help.
They do. Regeneration isn't guaranteed if the gap is too large or scar tissue forms. It might fail and it's slow, maybe 1.5 millimeters a day. But the potential is there. Unlike in the CNS, it's a key difference.
Right. That's a huge distinction.
Okay.
Let's move on to the specific nerve highways. First, the cranial nerves, 12 pairs, right?
12 pairs emerging directly from the brain or brainstem, mostly serving the head and neck. They're numbered with Roman numerals, I through 12.
And some are purely sensory, some mostly motor, some mixed. Any key ones we should highlight?
Definitely. Olfactory, 1 for smell, and optic, 2 for vision, are purely sensory. Damage leads to loss of smell, anosmia, or vision problems, anopsias.
Okay.
Oculomotor, 3, is mainly motor, controlling most eye movements, eyelid lifting, pupil constriction. Paralysis here causes significant issues. Eye can't move properly, eyelid droops, double vision.
Then there's the trigeminal V. That one sounds important.
It's the largest cranial nerve. It's the main general sensory nerve for the face, touch, temperature, pain, and it controls the chewing muscles. Clinically, it's known for trigeminal neuralgia, sometimes called thoracic douloureux.
That's the one known for causing excruciating facial pain, right? Triggered by almost anything.
Yes, often described as one of the worst pains imaginable, triggered by simple stimuli like a light touch or breeze, usually caused by nerve compression.
Oof. What about the facial nerve?
Chief motor nerve for facial expressions. Smile, frown, wrinkle your forehead. That's cranial nerve to 7. It also carries taste from the front of the tongue and controls some salivary and pier glands. Damage causes Bell's palsy.
The sudden facial paralysis on one side.
Exactly. Often temporary, thought to be linked to inflammation, maybe viral.
And the vagus.
X.
The wanderer.
Unique because it extends way beyond the head and neck down into the thorax and abdomen. It's a major parasympathetic nerve, regulating heart rate, breathing, digestion. Damage can cause hoarseness, swallowing difficulties, digestive issues. It's involved in a lot.
And one more, maybe hypoglossal 12.
Good one. Primarily motor, controlling tongue movements. Damage affects speech and swallowing, and if only one side is damaged, the tongue deviates towards the affected side when protruded.
Okay, so those are the cranial nerves. Now the spinal nerves, 31 pairs, and you said these are all mixed.
All 31 pairs are mixed nerves carrying both sensory and motor fibers. They supply the entire body except for the head and parts of the neck. They're named for the region of the spinal cord they emerge from. 8 cervical, C1, C8, 12 thoracic, T1, T12, 5 lumbar, L1, L5, 5 sacral, S1, S5, and 1 coccygeal, CO1.
Wait, 8 cervical nerves, but only 7 cervical vertebrae.
Ah, good catch. It's because the first cervical nerve exits above the C1 vertebra, C2 exits below C1, so on. C8 exits below the C7 vertebra, and then T1 exits below the T1 vertebra.
Got it. And how do they connect to the cord? You mentioned roots earlier.
Yes. Each spinal nerve connects via a dorsal root, carrying incoming sensory information, cell bodies in the dorsal root ganglion, and a ventral root, carrying outgoing motor commands, cell bodies in the spinal cord gray matter.
So roots are purely sensory or motor.
Correct. These two roots join briefly to form the spinal nerve itself, which is mixed. But then, almost immediately, the nerve splits into branches called rami. The dorsal ramus serves the back muscles and skin, while the larger ventral ramus serves the front and sides of the trunk and the limbs. These rami are mixed.
That distinction is key. Roots are segregated function, ramis are mixed. And these ventral rami do something interesting, right? They form networks.
Exactly, except in the thoracic region, T2, T12, where they mostly run straight to innervate intercostal muscles and skin. The ventral rami from other levels branch and join together, forming complex interlacing networks called nerve plexuses.
Cervical, brachial, lumbar, sacral plexuses. What's the point of this complex crossing over?
Redundancy and resilience. Because fibers from several different spinal nerves crisscross within a plexus, each nerve emerging from the plexus actually contains fibers from multiple spinal cord levels.
Ah, so if one spinal nerve or root is damaged,
the muscles or skin area supplied by the plexus won't be completely paralyzed or lose all sensation because they're still getting input via other spinal nerves through the plexus. It's a safety net, especially crucial for the limbs.
Brilliant design. Let's look at a couple of key plexuses. The cervical plexus, C1, C4.
Supplies skin and muscles of the neck, ear area, back of head, shoulders. Most importantly, it gives rise to the phrenic nerve, mainly C3, C4, C5.
Nerve to the diaphragm. Essential for breathing.
Absolutely. Irritation causes hiccups. Severing both phrenic nerves or damage to the C3, C5 spinal cord region leads to respiratory paralysis. C3, 4, 5 keeps the diaphragm alive.
Memorable. What about the brachial plexus, C5, T1? That serves the arm, right?
The entire upper limb. It's quite complex roots, trunks, divisions, cords, but ultimately gives rise to all the major nerves of the arm and hand. Injuries here are common and can have significant effects.
Like what?
Well, damage to the median nerve, often compressed in carpal tunnel syndrome, causes trouble with the pincer grasp and sensation issues. Injury to the ulnar nerve, the funny bone nerve, can lead to sensory loss and claw hand deformity.
And the radial nerve.
That controls the extensor muscles. Damage, maybe from improper crutch use or falling asleep with your arm over a chair, Saturday night paralysis, causes wrist drop, inability to extend the wrist and fingers.
Okay, moving down to the lumbosacral plexus.
Yeah.
This serves the lower limbs.
Yes, it's often considered together, but technically it's the lumbar plexus, L1, L4, and the sacral plexus, L4, S4. The lumbar plexus mainly serves the anterior and medial thigh. Key nerves are the femoral nerve, innervates quadriceps, skin of anterior thigh, and the obturator nerve innervates adductor muscles.
Like the sacral plexus.
This serves the buttock, posterior thigh, and virtually all of the leg and foot. Its main branch is the massive sciatic nerve.
The longest and thickest nerve in the body. Everyone's heard of sciatica.
Right. Sciatica is pain radiating along the path of this nerve, often caused by compression like a herniated disc. The sciatic nerve itself is actually two nerves bundled together. The tibial and common fibular nerves. Severe damage, like transection, makes the leg pretty much useless below the knee.
And the common fibular nerve is particularly vulnerable.
It is, because it wraps superficially around the neck of the fibula. Injury leads to foot drop, the inability to lift the front of the foot, dorsiflex.
Okay, one more concept related to spinal nerves. Dermatomes.
A gematome is the area of skin supplied by the sensory fibers of a single spinal nerve. All spinal nerves except C1 have a dermatome.
And clinically, this is useful how?
By testing sensation in different dermatomes, clinicians can pinpoint the level of a spinal cord injury or locate a damaged spinal nerve root. There's overlap, especially on the trunk, but it provides a good map.
And finally, Hilton's law for joints.
Just a useful rule of thumb. Any nerve that supplies a muscle-producing movement at a joint also innervates the joint itself and the skin over the joint. It simplifies understanding joint innervation.
Okay, fantastic overview of the wiring. Now, how does the signal get from the nerve to the target tissue to actually do something? Let's talk motor endings and the overall motor control hierarchy.
Right. Motor endings are where the PNS actually delivers the command to the effector's muscles or glands. For skeletal muscle, the connection is highly specialized. The neuromuscular junction.
The NMJ. That's where nerve meets muscle fiber.
Precisely. It's a complex synapse where the motor neuron releases acetylcholine, ACH. ACA binds to receptors on the muscle fiber membrane, triggering an electrical event called an end plate potential, which then leads to a muscle action potential and contraction. It's very fast and direct.
And then an enzyme breaks down the ACA quickly, so the signal stops.
Acetylcholinesterase does that job, yes, allowing for precise control. Now contrast that with the innervation of visceral muscle, smooth muscle, and glands by the autonomic nervous system.
How does that differ?
It's much simpler, less direct. Autonomic axons have these swellings along their length called varicosities, which release neurotransmitters like ACH or norepinephrine over a wider area. It's like spraying perfume rather than injecting it precisely. The response is slower and often involves second messengers within the target cell.
Different systems, different connection styles for different jobs. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So who's orchestrating all these motor commands? There's a hierarchy.
Yes, motor control is organized into 3 levels. Think of it like a company's management structure.
Okay, who's on the ground floor?
That's the segmental level, the lowest level located in the spinal cord. It consists of the spinal cord circuits, including reflexes and those central pattern generators, CPGs we mentioned.
The CPGs, those spinal cord networks that generate basic rhythmic movements like walking.
Exactly. They handle the basic patterns automatically.
Okay, who's the middle management?
That's the projection level. It consists of neurons in the brainstem and motor cortex, whose axons project down to the spinal cord. Upper motor neurons from the cortex initiate voluntary, skilled movements. Brainstem pathways modify and control the segmental level activity, helping with things like posture and balance.
So they convey the instructions down and refine the basic patterns.
Right, and they also send feedback upwards.
And the top brass, the CEOs.
That's the pre-command level, consisting of the cerebellum and the basal nuclei. These structures don't directly connect to the spinal cord, but they act on the projection level.
What's their role?
They are the ultimate planners and coordinators. They regulate motor activity, ensuring movements are started and stopped correctly, are smooth and coordinated, unwanted movements are suppressed, and muscle tone is appropriate.
So the cerebellum fine-tunes things in real time.
Yes, it receives sensory feedback and compares it with the intended movement, then sends corrective signals. The basal nuclei are more involved in selecting appropriate movements, initiating and terminating them, and suppressing unwanted ones. Think of them as helping choose and sequence actions.
So even before you consciously decide to, say, pick up a pen, these pre-command areas are already setting up the plan.
Essentially, yes. The cortex provides the conscious intent, but the pre-command level programs the specific timing and patterns required for smooth, coordinated execution, acting through the projection level. It's a highly sophisticated system.
It really is. Which brings us neatly to those automatic responses, reflex activity. The fastest reactions our nervous system performs.
Reflexes are rapid, predictable, involuntary motor responses to stimuli. They're crucial for protection, posture, and basic functions.
And we have different types, right? Inborn versus learned.
Correct. Inborn or intrinsic reflexes are things we're born with, pulling your hand from a hot stove, the knee-jerk reflex. They're genetically determined pathways. Learned or acquired reflexes come from practice and repetition, like slamming on the brakes in your car or catching a ball.
So driving becomes reflexive over time.
Much of it does, yes. And these reflexes, learn or inborn, all operate via a reflex arc.
The neural pathway, what are the essential parts?
5 components. 1, the receptor, site of stimulus. 2, the sensory neuron, transmits impulse to CNS. 3, the integration center, 1 or more synapses within the CNS. 4, the motor neuron, conducts impulse from CNS. 5, the effector, muscle or gland that responds.
Receptor, Sensory neuron, integration, motor neuron, effector. Got it. And testing these, especially spinal reflexes, is clinically useful.
Very much so. Reflex testing helps assess the condition of the nervous system. Abnormal reflexes, exaggerated, weak, or absent, can indicate damage somewhere along the pathway.
Let's talk about some specific spinal reflexes, the stretch reflex, like the knee jerk.
The classic example. Its purpose is primarily to maintain muscle tone and posture. When your knee buckles slightly, it stretches the quadriceps muscle. Muscle spindles inside the quad detect this stretch.
Okay.
This activates sensory neurons that directly synapse with motor neurons in the spinal cord, monosynaptic, which then cause the quadriceps to contract, straightening the knee. At the same time, signals inhibit the opposing hamstring muscles, reciprocal inhibition.
So it contracts the stretched muscle and relaxes the antagonist. Clever. And what's alpha-gamma coactivation?
That ensures the muscle spindle remains sensitive even when the main muscle contracts. Motor commands go not just to the main muscle fibers, alpha motor neurons, but also to tiny muscle fibers within the spindle, gamma motor neurons. This keeps the spindle taut, allowing it to signal changes in length regardless of the overall muscle length.
Constant monitoring. What about tendon reflexes? They seem opposite.
They are, in effect. Stretched reflexes cause contraction, tendon reflexes cause relaxation. Tendon organs, located in tendons, sense excessive muscle tension. If tension gets dangerously high, they trigger a reflex that inhibits the contracting muscle and activates the antagonist. Its protective prevents muscle tendons from tearing. It's polysynaptic.
Okay, protective relaxation. Now, the flexor reflex, or withdrawal reflex.
That's your automatic withdrawal from a painful stimulus. Touch something sharp or hot, and your limb pulls back before you're even consciously aware of the pain. It's protective, ipsilateral, same side of the body, and polysynaptic. It can be overridden by conscious effort sometimes, though.
And this often happens with the crossed extensor reflex.
Yes, especially in weight-bearing limbs. If you step on a tack, triggering a flexor reflex in that leg to lift it, the crossed extensor reflex activates muscles in your other leg to extend and support your weight, keeping you from falling over.
Wow.
So you get ipsilateral flexion and contralateral extension. It's vital for balance.
A complex coordination, all happening at the spinal cord level. Amazing. Lastly, superficial reflexes, like the plantar reflex.
These are elicited by gentle stimulation of the skin. The plantar reflex tests the integrity of the spinal cord from L4 to S2 and the corticospinal tracts. Normally, stroking the sole of the foot causes the toes to curl downward, flex.
But sometimes they go up, Babinski's sign.
Right. If the primary motor cortex or corticospinal tract is damaged, you see Babinski's sign. The big toe extends upward and the other toes fan out. This is normal in infants under a year old because their nervous systems aren't fully myelinated yet, but it's a sign of trouble in adults.
What an incredible, intricate system the peripheral nervous system is. We've gone from the tiniest sensory receptors all the way through nerve highways, motor commands, and reflexes.
It really is the unsung hero, isn't it? This vast network connecting our central command with every single part of our body and the external world. Without it, the brain would be isolated and our bodies unresponsive.
Yeah, every sensation, every movement, every quick reaction, it all depends on the PNS functioning smoothly, mostly beneath our conscious awareness.
The level of detail, the speed, the coordination involved in something as simple as walking across a room or picking up a cup is just staggering when you break it down.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
So if you go about your day, maybe take a moment to appreciate it. Think about other simple things you do, maybe typing, maybe just maintaining your balance while standing. And consider the complex, unconscious symphony being conducted by your PNS. It truly is a biological marvel.
Thank you all for joining us for this deep dive into the peripheral nervous system. We really appreciate you being part of our last-minute lecture family.